All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome. We are going to give just about 30 seconds to let all the attendees filter in. So hang on just for about 30 more seconds, and we'll let everyone come in here. So thanks everyone for joining us today for America Seed Fund Week. Looks like people are slowly coming in. So as that happens, I'll just kick us off with a kind of a quick intro before I hand it off to all the amazing speakers you see in the video there. So I'm Jack Hinkle from the Florida High Tech Corridor, and so we are hosting this event as part of America Seed Fund Week, really highlighting 3 different examples from within the corridor region of companies that have done really well, leveraging SBIR funding to move the R&D forward, to move the companies forward. They have different strategies and they've had different experiences. So we're going to have a sort of informal discussion-based session, be a little bit of slides, but we want to hear from you, and we're going to hear from them about some of their stories. Before I hand it over, I'm going to do a really quick introduction to the corridor and the organization that I'm a part of, why we're organizing this. So for the corridor, we focus primarily on the 23 county region, anchored by the 3 major research universities right here in the center of the state of Florida. So that's USF in Tampa, UCF in Orlando, and UF up in Gainesville. And so it's really driving innovations in the industry university collaborations across the region forward. A big part of that is SBIR and STTR. We have 2 programs I'm going to highlight that do a lot of work in the SBIR and STTR world in supporting innovation. One is Synfluence, which is our clustering initiative. This is a partnership with the Orange County, Florida government. Also major partners in Duke Energy and Orlando Economic Partnership and supporting high-tech innovation and growth, again, across Central Florida. We have 4 prime technology clusters that we focus on, kind of expanding and diversifying the industry of Central Florida. You can see those clusters up on the screen. We have a lot of resources and support across these 4 sectors and across the region. And just a note, we will be launching a 5th semiconductor cluster coming up as a result of our partnership on a Build Back Better award. So you'll see that coming in the next couple of months, but we provide SBIR, STTR support and a range of other services across these 4 clusters through our Synfluence program. And then kind of finally, before I hand it over, one other program and kind of a key push on the SBIR, STTR support is our Federal and State Technology Partnership Program, or FLFAP. The state of Florida's FAST Center, funded through the SBA to increase the capacity and resources for companies and ecosystems in supporting SBIR and STTR funding throughout the state. We do a number of things with FAST, so we outreach across the whole state of Florida, both to ecosystem builders like incubators, accelerators, co-working spaces, SBDCs, everything in between, and connecting those groups with entrepreneurs and kind of trying to reach throughout the state to make sure people are aware of the resources available through SBIR and STTR funding. We also offer technical assistance. So this is virtual webinars, one-on-one training, proposal review and support. So we do a number of things to just increase the resources available, and again, the capacity to get more awards into the state of Florida. And then finally, through the corridor's matching grants research program, there is financial support in the form of matching dollars for university and industry collaborations. And this includes SBIR, STTR. So if you're there's some specifications that we can share, but if you're a company within the corridor that's doing sponsored research with one of the partner research institutions, then there's potentially some matching funding there that increases the university scope of work. And one of our speakers here will be able to talk about that and if they receive that. But just the quick introduction, and we'll dive into the companies. So these are the 3 amazing companies we have sharing their experiences in the SBIR and STTR program. So first up is SRC BioSciences, then followed by CodeCraft Works and Sensatek Propulsion Technologies. And so so our 2 speakers from SRC is actually the Director and Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Peter Mouton, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and then Dr. Dimitry Goldgof from USF. They'll share a bit on their collaboration, the partnership, university and industry, kind of some of the lessons learned there and what they've done. So they're going to share their experiences. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, so let our speakers jump in. And my last bit of housekeeping, if you have any questions while we're going through these 15-minute sections for each of our companies. Feel free to put questions in the chat. If we don't get to them at the end of each speaker, we'll get to them at the end of the session in general. So put questions in as you see them into the Q&A. So,
should I go
yeah,
next?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So let me share my screen. And yeah. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So hello, everyone. I will just briefly talk about USF capabilities, and then Peter will talk about more specific projects which we worked together on over the years. And then hopefully we can also share some experience how to create a successful collaboration between the companies and universities. Now, I'm not sure if attendance mostly from Florida or not, but some of my first slides is just advertisement for USF. That's what I start with when I give a talk overseas and at the conferences. This is, of course, USF. Okay, let me see. And next page. And this was USF Tampa located. There are some pictures. Okay, and first I'm going to talk about not yourself, but specifically Department of Computer Science and Engineering. And we have a fairly large department. We have over 2,000 undergraduate students and a lot of graduate students, about 100 PhD and 200 master students, and a very broad research program in the different areas, and I'll talk about the area in the next slide. And I'm presenting that to say that there are many people who are interested in collaborative activities with company and commercialization. And if your company's interests are within that scope, you may be interested in talking to some of our faculty. So the research in our department broadly is in these four main categories. One large area of research is, of course, AI. Of course, AI is everywhere now, but we were working on that for many years. We have a number of faculty in a different aspect of artificial intelligence and deep learning. We also have a very large group working in cybersecurity applications, and there is quite a bit of collaboration with companies. As you know, Tampa Bay has a number of cybersecurity companies. Then we have people working at hardware. That's what we call efficient computing platforms, both standard computing as well as new AI accelerators and AI-related hardware. And of course, the last category is biomedical imaging, machine learning, and big data algorithms, which kind of closely related to just separate AI cluster. In any case, if any of these topics are interested to you, you may want to take a look at the faculty we have. I myself work in the area in medical image analysis, mainly and AI, and have worked with companies for a number of projects in the biomedical imaging and AI area. In particularly, Peter will talk about the project we worked together, but I just want to mention here that we have continuous, almost continuous SBIR, STTR funding from 2009 and a number of different projects. So this is 4 projects listed here. And it was very, very satisfying collaboration, certainly on our side. We worked very closely together. It's not doing the research and then moving into a company. It's doing the research while you're moving into a company, because only that way you can have realistic, you have to can solve the problems which actually exist. in practice. So as a result of that, we have, this is from Google Scholar. I put my name and Peter's name into co-authors. So it came up with 34 papers and 8 patents as a result of all this effort. I let Peter continue at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Goldgof. Thank you, Jack, for inviting us. And nice to meet the other panelists. And thank you for others who are attending. I'll try to share my screen and see if it works in our preliminary try. It wasn't cooperating, but let me try that and see. How does that work?
I think it's good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. This is going to talk about the SRC USF collaborations. We are located here in Tampa. We're on Kennedy Boulevard across from the University of Tampa, so about 10-15 minutes away from USF. And as Dr. Goldgof mentioned, we've been working together on a number of projects, and particularly the PIs at USF have been Dr. Goldgof, Dr. Hall, and Dr. Sun, all in computer science and engineering. And this is the computer science building at USF. Our mission at SRC is we have a 3-part mission, and it has to do with education. We help to educate the bioscience, neuroscience community on quantitative methods. We also participate closely in research projects because my background is I'm a neuroscientist. I have a strong connection to USF because I got my PhD here in the 90s and went away and did some work postdoc in Europe, and then came back to a postdoc at Johns Hopkins and worked in neuropathology there for 18 years. And then started to collaborate again with USF, with Dr. Goldgof, after a meeting in 2007 when I came and gave a workshop, and Dr. Goldgof attended the workshop, and we just started talking that we had some mutual interest, and so it just naturally evolved. I won't say, you know, it isn't always smooth because you have to learn how different cultures work, but I think having worked at USF, having done a lot of collaborations and some business work in Baltimore with the tech transfer office there, gotten SBIRs. Previously, it was pretty easy to transition to the same sort of approach here at USF. So what we've been doing is working on biotechnology. I'm going to try to go to full screen and see what happens. Does that work or no?
We still see side slides as well, but we see the main slide also. So
okay, so let me try going to this page. This is the problem.
Yeah, it doesn't show it right.
Do you have my slides by any chance?
Yes, I do.
Dimitry, maybe you could show those.
Let me try that. Hold on.
I'm not sure why. They do a lot of sharing, screen sharing, but for some reason, not working here. Yeah, so we started to collaborate on some SBIR while I was still in Baltimore, and we got the grants and decided after the phase 2 to actually move back to Florida and move the company back to Tampa, and continued collaborating, and even got into more collaborations with the Alzheimer's Disease Center, Bird Alzheimer's Center at USF. So I think, you know, in terms of, yeah.
It works?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me when to switch slide.
Maybe the next one.
Hold on.
You just have to hit the space bar, maybe. Yep. Okay. So for just as a summary, similar to what Dr. Goldgof has said, we've gotten quite a bit of funding, including NSF, NIH, and state funding from Florida High Tech. We've published about 35 papers in computer science and bioscience journals, including conference papers, student and faculty presentations at many different venues. We've been awarded multiple patents. We have several other patents in the works. Are there more slides? Yeah. I've been on a dissertation and thesis advisory committees with for students for about 14 years with 12 different students, master's and PhD students. And then our annual revenue since moving here has gone up quite a bit. And a good part of that is the fact that we're now collaborating with computer science and using our expertise together with computer science expertise to do AI in areas that have not had AI previously. So, that's sort of the draw for a lot of people to our products now. And I don't think that would have happened had we not gotten into these collaborations. And then over the 14 years, we've hired 30 plus full-time and part-time workers at our facility here. So it's been a very positive experience. We've also, I think, raised the level of leadership for the Florida High-Tech Corridor internationally, that we are sort of becoming thought leaders and actual developers of AI for biomedical problems. See how these are going to work. So one of the ongoing projects we've been working on, I'd say probably for almost the whole time, is developing automatic analysis of tissue sections. So as you can see from this figure, you start with slides. So this would be, for example, brain sections. And typically people have been doing these analysis manually, and it takes a long time. It's very labor intensive. It's expensive to pay people to do this. It's very tedious, and generally people don't want to do it. Students are not really thrilled about sitting clicking on slides on a monitor. So we decided to use AI and develop some AI approaches, which we're calling fully automatic stereology technology, or FAST, and then take all of that tedium out of the process, train the models to automatically do the counting, either automatically count or automatically classify, and then they can get the data. So that's one project. A second project that came about had to do with pain in babies, and it has to do with Tampa General Hospital. And what we try to do is eliminate the pain that babies have to experience when they're born, and they have to have surgery. So babies have surgery, and they immediately have to have some pain medication, usually morphine. And so we're trying to predict when the pain is going to start, so they don't have to have morphine, but can be treated with acetaminophen a priori. In other words, stay ahead of the pain, and that will prevent them from getting the pain, which is very devastating to their developing nervous system, and then not having to get addicted to morphine or fentanyl, and then having a longer period in the NICU to recover from that. So that's the second project, and both of these have been well funded, and we're continuing to do the work involving a lot of students. And then we have matching funds from the Florida High-Tech Corridor that adds additional students to the project. The classification project that you see here, if somebody goes and counts a lot of these cases, so we collect what we call a standard curve. So there's a range of cells that have been counted. So this is the accurate range of values. And then for each of these values, we train the deep learning model to say, what does that look like at low mag? So if you have 600,000 cells, what does that look like at low mag? And after we get all those trained up, then all we have to do is show the model the low mag image, and it can map that to the total count, and without anyone having to do the counting. So this has been really a big development. A current PhD student, Hunter Morera, has published on that method. And we're going to a meeting in DC to present that as well. And as far as the baby pain project, so here, this lower lower image shows that normally after surgery, the pain is going up, the baby's experiencing till it gets to a threshold. And once it gets to that threshold, it starts to be treated, then the pain comes down. So the baby basically goes through this up and down cycle of in pain, out of pain. And because of the morphine, it gets addicted to the pain medication. So our approach is to be able to predict before it goes into pain so that we can, as I said, preempt that pain with acetaminophen, something that's not addictive, not an opioid, and keep it below the pain threshold. And that way it doesn't get addicted and it doesn't suffer the damage from being in pain, severe pain, and then addicted to fentanyl. And this is work that was started and it's being done at Salakin, who has graduated and has gone on to a big job at Amazon, but it's been taken over by Jacqueline Hausman, who is currently, this is going to be her PhD project, is the predictive aspect of this project. So we've had good experiences with this collaboration, and that's what I'd have to say. Any questions? I'm happy to elaborate.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think we'll ask everyone to put questions in the chat and we'll address them at the end, maybe as at the panel part. But I really appreciate you sharing about that, and it's awesome to see the use of the quarter resources and just kind of the partnership that you've established through all the work here. But yeah, we'll bring questions up at the end. I think our next speaker is Shannon Landin, the founder and CEO of CodeCraft Works. So Shannon, let you take it away.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here. And I really enjoyed that last presentation, learning more about what Dimitry and Peter are working on. Incredible stuff. I really like the comment that Dimitry made about real world scenarios and not going from research to a company, but really thinking about research as, from a design thinking standpoint, right? So making sure that we're very iterative and we're asking questions the whole way through that are related to commercialization and benefit ultimately to our customers and hopefully the recipients of the good work that comes out of our research and development efforts. So I was really aligned with that comment, and I agree with it so much. So I guess I can share some slides too. Mine look a little different. I'm sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe. I don't even know if that's quite the right word, but let me just show you what I've got. So CodeCraft Works, we are a woman-owned small business and an education technology developer. I like to call us a world-class training partner. I believe we are, although we're not a university. We provide innovative online courses and data-driven tools so that our partners can have access to in-demand high-tech education. And what I'm really saying there is that we partner with companies who have specific training goals. So whether those are K-12 education providers or maybe a workforce development partner, or even a company who's looking to fill in the gap with regard to a specific pipeline shortage. And we can develop training and tools that help them to reach their goals. So CodeCraft has about 6 years of experience now in federal research and development, and that's backed by multiple awards, SBIR awards from the National Science Foundation. In the short term, we have developed some off-the-shelf courses, if you will, that anyone could take, and they are related to the opportunities that exist in technology today. So looking to help people who maybe haven't had role models in STEM or engineering, haven't had access to the kind of training that they might need in early education to take the leap and find the motivation, the resilience to take on the harder classes or learn something that's brand new to them in order to not only find a great career for themselves, but hopefully to benefit the companies and corporations, like the people like me and you that need talented workers on our teams. And so I think I mentioned we have these sort of off the shelf classes. We've worked everywhere in developing them from K-12 all the way through workforce and young adult learners. Actually, I think some of our learners aren't so young per se, but from K-12 through adult, or maybe the better way to say it is K-12 through employment. And one of the things that is maybe a little bit unique about us is that we really work to go beyond just the technical requirements, but we look to understand and leverage behavioral science and design thinking in our courses so that students are learning about resilience. And I think that makes the learning science and human performance cluster of Synfluence so valuable to us. So one of our partners is out of California, and we've worked to develop a curriculum, a program that specifically looks at resilience and purpose and their roles in helping students connect to STEM careers and learning. And so we have spent some time understanding what it takes for someone to overcome the obstacles and stick to it when things get hard. So we've looked at various interventions, if you will, that help students survive that kind of middle ground. Once they get a little taste and are excited, it does get hard in these disciplines. And so we've worked really hard to develop the programs that keep them engaged and the interventions that work in terms of resilience and purpose. So this is just a little bit about that specific program. And then one of the things that happened to us as we were doing this kind of research is that we recognized that the programs we were developing were beneficial to not just students in a K-12 setting, but that they were really beneficial to workforce development, especially when someone was looking to change careers or take on something new or fill a role that they really didn't have a lot of experience in. So maybe someone with a 4-year degree, but not in STEM, or maybe someone who just never knew that this kind of career or opportunity was available to them. We could help them overcome their fears and find a way to take on something brand new and be successful. And then through that, we were able to partner with other groups. So the one I'll just use as an example today, we worked with them to develop a custom training program for people with disabilities. And so we looked at all kinds of disabilities, the entire spectrum, cognitive to physical, mobility, even emotional and psychological disabilities, and tried and applied our methods for teaching STEM, but also resilience and helping people learn how to overcome and adapt. And then we also were able to work with funding from NSF to ensure that our platform and that the tools they actually use to create their assignments and build experience were all accessible and available to people no matter their disability. So remediation of an ed tech platform. And then we in a meta way, took all of that learning and built it into what we were sharing back with these same students, so that when they build and design systems, they're thinking about all kinds of people. So we've had some success, and I'm so proud of it. One of the hardest things about this job is that it's just hard, right? Doing this kind of research, asking big questions, and then bringing it to the marketplace, where every day we're finding out if what we're doing matters to anyone or not. Then you get a letter like this, or you find out that someone's gotten a job who maybe wouldn't have been considered or wasn't a front runner previously, and you know that the work you're doing really matters. So we kind of now have this amazing, I'd say, understanding of what it takes to work with and for people who are differently abled or traditionally unrepresented in this kind of a discipline, and help them get started in a career that can grow to be really meaningful and big beyond that entry-level spot. So this young woman is an example. You know, she's so excited to have one entry-level position, making $45,000 a year, but it's an entry-level position for a company that's doing government contracting in IT and help desk space. And you know, she didn't have the ability to participate or do well in traditional training programs without the remediations that our platform offered. And then we also have been working with veterans, and one of our really exciting outcomes is that the same kind of remediations that we're using to help younger students or people that are differently abled can be applied in helping veterans transitioning out of the service who may not have their path decided yet, explore and learn in STEM careers, and potentially go to work to help defense contractors in our area fulfill their contracts. And so it's a win-win. We're really proud of this. And then some of the other things to take note are that, you know, people with disabilities are employed at very low ratios compared to traditionally non-disabled or the general population, people without a disability. And our program has been able to make a huge dent. We have an 86% employment rate for our people with disabilities within 1 year of program graduation, and we're working on getting these salaries up there, but they're starting, you know, to come in at something that someone can survive on. So we're proud of that, and we know it's the entry level, and these are people who were previously unemployed, even in this market. So that's just a little bit about what we do, and I'd be happy to answer more questions specific to the benefits of working with an SBIR award and how we've leveraged that as they come in. Thank you.
So I think we have time for one quick question before we move on. So there was a question from Catherine that just came in about how did you get started with the NSF program, or maybe another way to think about it is how did you figure out what to propose to NSF that added on to what you were kind of already building?
Thanks. I had an interest in this, and I was working on it in my local community. I was really volunteering in the schools and just trying to understand how there were all these amazing computers and all this hardware, and people were, the students were using it, but the teachers needed a lot of support in providing, and it did seem to be a lot about the hardware, but what could we do with software? And then at the same time, there's a huge increase in demand and opportunity for people in computer science, cybersecurity. And I just saw the collision of those two things, the need for more support and growth on the K-12 and workforce side, along with the demand. And so I just started working on it. And I kind of started testing the market, asking, hey, in my neighborhood and around my community, people were struggling too with the screen time, feelings. And so asking parents to kind of think critically about what screen time is. It's not all equal, and encouraging the conversation of, you know, how was that built? How many people did it take? So long story short, I had a lot of questions. I saw an opportunity, and then I came across a call for proposals. And then the big work of recognizing that I was working on something related, and then sitting down and figuring out how to respond in detail to the proposal. And so it does take a long time to write those proposals, maybe especially if you've never done it before, which I had not. But I feel like in my case, you know, taking the time to make sure I understood all of the requirements of the proposal and speak directly about my firsthand experiences, as well as the national trends and prior research, really helped me to align my proposal with what the call was. So I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I want to hand it over to Reamonn Soto for our last company speaker. Reamonn's the founder and CEO of Sensatek Propulsion.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I have a lot of windows open. I am working on proposals. All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Reamonn Soto, founder and CEO of Sensatek. Sensatek Propulsion Technology Incorporated is a venture capital-backed company. We're based on Florida Space Coast in Daytona Beach, Florida. So just a little bit about, you know, who I am, as I'm kind of sharing my experience and, you know, what it's been like to, you know, receive SBIRs while commercializing a new technology in the market, and how the Florida High Tech Corridor and university partners have helped support that effort. Just want to give you a little bit of background on who I am and how I came to found Sensatek. So I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I was in the reserves. You know, I was stationed overseas, over in Hawaii and Norway. I wasn't in Iraq or Afghanistan, although I volunteered to go, but I was sent to vacation spots instead. And but while in the Marine Corps, I have earned a degree in physics. And for grad school, I wanted to do a little bit something different. I wanted to apply, you know, science in a more you know, boots on the ground, you know, kind of a way. And so I wanted to apply it, you know, my experience into, you know, the aerospace world. And so I went to Embry-Riddle for grad school, and it was here where I got a chance to do some research in the jet engine lab. And so basically we were working on new propulsion systems, anywhere from pulse detonation engines to, you know, still also figuring out ways to enhance current systems, engine models like the GE 606, some of the engines that are also on, that is used to power Air Force One. And we were, you know, while doing research in this space, you know, we were going to higher temperatures, and we had parts and components that were basically burning up, and no one really knew, you know, at what temperatures or what pressures that, you know, this stuff start to happen. And so we learned that it was a pretty big problem, not just for us in the lab, but we've also went out and talked to folks in the field and discovered that like even utilities use jet engines to generate power. And I had not realized that, except, you know, when the engine fails on their end, it can, you know, cost anywhere between a $3 to a $40 million outage because of the temperatures that go undetected on the most critical components. And so the first thing we did, you know, I thought, okay, we got a big business, you know, we can make a lot of money, you know, trying to solve this problem. But the first thing we've learned, you know, from the support of the High Tech Corridor and the UCF entrepreneurial ecosystem, was that, you know, there's a lot of assumptions about what we understood about our market and about our future business. And we needed to go out and test those assumptions and create hypotheses around those assumptions and go out and see if we could either validate or invalidate it. And so we did that. We got out of the building and we had to learn directly from customers. And doing the I-Corps program, so the National Science Foundation as a program called iCore that basically provides you the mentors, the financial support to go out and talk to customers face to face to really understand if you're focused on solving the right problem. So we did that, and what we did is based on the feedback, we created a wireless high temperature sensing system that measures the actual blade metal temperatures of fast moving components like blades inside of a jet engine. So you can see kind of how it works. We put these passive high temperature ceramic sensors directly on blades. And while those blades are spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, we have a high temperature antenna that's used to communicate with the sensors in real time, and then have our software that basically captures that information. And so here's an example of how we did it on actual grid connected gas turbines. So we put our sensors, we sold systems to GE, Rolls-Royce aircraft engines, Raytheon, Pratt & Whitney. We've also delivered systems to Siemens Energy, and we've put them on grid connected engines. We've also put them on helicopter engines. And we thought, after going through the, I think we spent like $5 million in SBIRs from the National Science Foundation, and then DOD, the Air Force, had a different way in how they wanted to apply the sensors. And so their application was much more aggressive than a power generation, application. And so we had to come up with different bonding methodologies. So the scope increased significantly, but being able to work with our partners like the University of Central Florida to be able to offer subcontract, and for the high-tech corridor to match a part of that, kind of helped us to be able to expand that scope so that we could get a lot of the work done much more efficiently. We also hired postdocs out of UCF with PhDs in electrical engineering who had some RF experience, and we're also, excuse me, we're also able to leverage support from the National Science Foundation through the supplement. So the SBIR, after going through a phase 1 and a phase 2, I think the supplements were probably worth more than the actual phase 2 award. We were able to, bring on a postdoc full time that the NSF had paid for, who's now our chief technology officer, of our company. And so he's been with us for 3.5 years now. And so, we did all of that. It takes a village to raise a child, but it also kind of takes one to raise a company, and it takes one for, to also develop a technology. And we've also learned that it takes one to also make decisions with our customers. And so what we learned about the gas turbine business after doing, all of that work was that, the sales cycles were very slow. I mean, OEMs move like glacier ice when trying to sell a technology. And a lot of times there's like 20 people involved in that decision-making process. And so the questions that we used to get, from a lot of investors was like, why are you niche? You're too niched, for us. And, your sales cycle's too slow. And I'm like, well, but we're solving a big problem. And what we've learned is, yes, it's a big problem, but also understanding the intricacies involved in that decision-making process. And we've learned that the gas turbine manufacturers are actually selling those engines at a loss because they're really making up the money by selling blades. And we're coming in saying, hey, we're going to help you guys save money. We're not going to have to spend as much money on blades. So it was a pretty losing proposition, $5 million later. And so we had to do it all over again. We had to get back out of the building again. And instead of talking to 100 people, I'm going to talk to 10, times more of that. So we talked to 1,000 people, going out, to other applications where there's other rotating environments. And what we've learned is that our sensor actually has a home on the wind turbine side, using the same technology, all the research that we've done. So we've pivoted and realized that, blade failures is also a big deal on the wind turbine fleet. and that our wireless sensors, instead of using it as a temperature sensor, using it as a strain sensor, can basically help better predict when blades are going to fail, doing a much better job than like drones or human inspections. So this is kind of how we measure up. So now we, developed the wireless dynamic strain sensing technology for structural health monitoring using the same process, same, similar concepts. And, with that, the wind turbine market is a much better market. They're growing at, at a rate of 8% year over year. The fast growing wind turbine companies are growing at 22% year over year. And by 2050, there will be about over 2 million wind turbines. So we're excited. We already have, pilots lined up with some of the world's largest wind turbine fleet owners. And we've gained more traction here in the last, few months than we've had in the last few years. And so, without the help of the high-tech corridor being able to help us build out, the technical assistance, like being able to build out a pipeline with like customer names, phone numbers, contacts. I mean, that information is gold. It's really helping to, help increase our traction in the market. It helps us better communicate our story with investors, especially in Florida, and being a part of the even with the university partners, they have their strengths and weaknesses. Some think the university is super slow. I think so too, but the right partners that we've worked with at the universities, they were hungry and they kept pace, with what we were experiencing firsthand in the market. And so I'm really thankful, when you find a good PI at a university, take that person out to lunch, let them know, like, having that relationship, being able to move paperwork pretty fast to a university, having those relationships, I found to be extremely helpful. And yeah, so that's kind of my experience in a nutshell, and I'll welcome any questions at this time.
Yeah, so one question for you, Reamonn, and then we'll open it up to everybody else, and please put questions in the Q&A or in the chat. But a question for you. So you talked about doing 1,000 customer interviews. And you're not necessarily in a market where it's, restaurants aren't your customers, where there's thousands of them and thousands of them, right? I'm sure it's hard to find the interviews and kind of figure out how to make that happen. We have some companies that might have similar kind of experiences. So what advice do you have on how to structure the customer discovery to kind of get those interviews in, maybe, relative, not small markets dollar wise, but maybe people wise, and then how do you use that in your proposals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So to kind of give you some context, 1,000 interviews might sound like a daunting task, but you quickly build momentum. And what you're really doing is having conversations with customers, potential stakeholders. Usually it takes you talking to about 100 people, within a company before you actually find out if you're talking to the right person or not. And so, like to give you an example, GE has 275,000, employees. And so, trying to, talking to, reaching out, sending LinkedIn messages. I troll LinkedIn. I find customers, potential people to talk to on LinkedIn. I also, there are a lot of email sniffing tools out like Zoom Info that I use, that is really great at, providing a lot of, emails and phone numbers of, potential customers that I want to talk to. And I send out email campaigns. It takes me about reaching out to 1,000 people and maybe 100 respond, and actually 10 end up meeting with me. And then from that 10, I'll basically ask for like 3 or 4 referral introductions to others who we can talk to, even if they're not like directly related to what we're doing, but they're still connected to some part of the, I would call it like the customer value chain. They're still a part of the process, even if it's indirectly. They can provide a different perspective that will help you understand maybe some of the macroeconomic or some of the other driving forces outside of your business model that you didn't really think about. So even talking with contracting people or folks on the supplier side, everyone offers a different perspective. So talking, the conferences are really helpful. I've crashed a lot of conferences. I've even been to conferences where I couldn't really afford to, actually pay the fee. And so at the time I was a student, they allowed me to like volunteer to do things, and I was able to talk to people in the elevator. Anytime I talk to someone and get a data point, that's an interview. Sometimes they don't even know they're being interviewed, and I interview them. And so I'm asking the relevant, and the pertinent questions. And so you can rack up, 30 interviews at a conference, like within 1 hour, just talking to people. And every now and then you may get that one interview or that one customer engagement where, you only did one all week, but that one was the one that, was a make or break for you. And so you're always talking to customers, you're always building momentum. And some customers you talk to 3 or 4 times, you follow up. And I still count that as an interview. And so in the proposal writing space, like even when we were doing, DoD proposals, I talked to 400 Air Force stakeholders. And it helped me really articulate the problem that we were solving for them. And basically when I was writing the SBIR, when you had to do that identification, and significance of the problem or opportunity, I basically told that story, everything that we've learned, like, hey, during the, this process, we talked to, 300 or 400 people, and this is what we learned. This, and being able to, it provides a lot of credibility to the proposal, because you're saying, hey, I didn't make this up. This is what, talking to people like this is what they share. This is the narrative. This is the problem. And this is, how my research, is going to basically, or the product I'm developing is, this is how it's going to help them solve the problem. Because the customer basically, you reversed engineered your product based off of the feedback, and they basically created the product for you. I've had customers take me on a whiteboard and basically just design a solution for me, and so that feedback is really golden. And you want to know who the naysayers and the saboteurs are early on, before you develop something and, there's a decision being made and the decision maker talks to that one saboteur at the water fountain and it kills the whole deal. So being able, and you will never know. So, but being able to identify, those landmines early on helps you also address the risk that, that you can address in your proposal.
Awesome. Thank you. So thanks for that. We have a few minutes for open questions. I have one for the team at SRC and USF about the university collaboration piece. If there's a company that does not have a university relationship, but they want to for a proposal as a subaward or a partner, what kind of recommendations do you have to help make that successful? The kind of university industry partnership or collaboration, maybe for someone that doesn't have a lot of experience in that kind of.
Yes, so I can comment on that. So it's quite easy to find a person in the area who is interested in the same area. But what's important is to establish kind of periodic meetings and have people involved in the research. So in our example, we have a weekly research meeting and Peter attends every time. So it's not just we helping move the technology to the company, he brings to our research his expertise related to commercialization or not. And also in the long run, you establish this kind of the collaboration. And that as a result, it will be easier to work on a SBIR proposal or second version of the SBIR proposals. I have a comments about it in general. As you notice, maybe you notice, our main direction of our work until recently was the AI and automation of the microscope image processing for pathology and all that. And then suddenly there's this project about pain. Actually, the story is we started a project about the pain with Dr. Sun on R21 funding, nothing to do with the company, more for data collection and scientific development. And And we looked for other companies to do SBIR and had a random, not random people, someone just recommended, but not necessarily local or collaborative. And it never works out. So then I said, well, maybe we should talk to Peter, see if this, it looks like it falls within the company expertise, even though we didn't collaborate on that. And it proved to be much more successful, so that we got this R41.
Yeah, I would back that up. And another thing to keep in mind is that university is a very diverse place, and it'd be hard to come up with some kind of an idea that there's not somebody doing something related to that work at a university. And I would kind of go back to something that Shannon said about look for a big problem, ask a big question. You really don't want to have a small incremental, you're going to make something faster, cheaper, or better. You really are looking for something that's going to disrupt an industry. So when you pick your project, don't pick something that, I'm not saying they were trivial, but pick something that's a big idea. And also, find a person who's at the university who's working on something related to that big idea. It doesn't have to be exactly right. Just like Dr. Goldgof just said, when he approached us about working on the baby pain project, we have people in our company who are clinicians. And so it wasn't say in our wheelhouse, but we talked to those people and they said, yeah, I'm interested in that. So then we said, well, we just need to come up with the right aims for our project. And we work closely. And this is the key. I mean, you have to work closely with your collaborators. You can't just talk to them a little bit, then go away, do your work, and then come back and say, what do you think of this? You kind of work together with them. So, but a university has people, and their mission is also to train people in developing technology. So it's really just a matter of finding the right collaborator at a university, and all the universities in the I-Core, in the I-4 corridor could almost handle, one of those universities could almost handle, I would imagine, almost any project. So just contact people and you'll be surprised that people will be interested.
Yeah, and a little bit more, talking up the USF. So USF has a particular interest in commercialization and patent, and that actually was not always the case and not everywhere the case. There is this Academy of Inventors, which is a popular thing now, but I don't know if people remember, it was started at USF, and I was a member of first year, I think it was 2007 or something like that. Something like that.
2010 was the first year.
Maybe 2010, something like that. And so certainly in USF, it became more of a focus of the university, right? The funding for the commercialization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you don't know whether it's looking for collaborators or doing customer discovery, you can't hurt to ask, right? You got to ask.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I present in the beginning the scope of the computer science department. So you can look and see, and in each of this area there are multiple well-established or new, excellent new faculty in the area. So you can almost find anything in the big university like USF and UCF as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think we are 2 minutes over our time, so I want to be respectful for the speakers, for everyone on the line, but I'm going to say thank you all for sharing your kind of experiences. I think we wanted to highlight different ways you can use SBIR funding and kind of approach this. We shared, I think we did that. So I'll share a recording with everyone that's on the line. And if you have any questions that we didn't get to today, feel free to send them my way and I'll share them with the panelists and see if we're able to get those answered. So feel free to keep connecting, and thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for organizing this, Jack.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.